Hello and welcome. I'm Melinda Kinlami. Tonight, emergency operations continue at the scene of the Lagos Island fire as emergency officials blame prolonged operation on equipment and items stored in the building. Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu drops the prefix title. His Excellency chooses to be addressed as Mr. Governor. Multinational oil giant Total seeks to sell its stake in Nigeria's major offshore oil field. And Democrats in the U.S. Congress announced first public hearing next week in an inquiry that seeks to impeach President Donald Trump.
On business news tonight, bill proposing increment to value-added tax and fiscal laws in the country passes second reading at the Senate.
And on sports news tonight, Nigeria Football Federation says it will review the performance of Golden Eaglets technical crew after the five-time world champions crash out of the 2019 Under-17 World Cup.
From Abuja, appeal court nullifies election of Senate spokesperson Dayo Adeyeye, orders INEC to issue a certificate of return to Biodun Olujimi.
Fire outbreak at a textile market in Lagos State. Emergency operations are ongoing with firefighters, emergency management officials and security operatives still at the scene. The Lagos State Emergency Management Agency, LASEMA, blames the prolonged operation on the kind of equipment and items stored in the building.
As you can see, the building, it was a 5-6-story building that has all of commercial activity, merchandising, fabrics. The real cause of the fire yet, because the building is still a live site. As you can see, it's still a live site, so all of us still need to be very, very careful. And all sort of respondents have come to support. It's been completely burnt. They need to now start a gradual clearing of the building, which in itself is a very difficult exercise. Because what will happen there is they'll be dealing with concrete, they'll be dealing with very hot steel and iron. So my advice is that it is still a live site. People should move away. People should let the operators and the respondents and all of our men be able to do their work and do it well. We need to do what we call a full integrity. We must have done a full to ascertain the level of integrity of the surrounding building.
Meanwhile, the Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, says he no longer wants to be addressed as His Excellency. Instead, he prefers to be called Mr. Governor. To make this official, an executive order will be formally issued, which will take effect from November the 7th, that's tomorrow. According to a statement issued by the governor's spokesperson, it has become necessary to review certain features of citizen-government relations, one of which, in the words of the governor, borders on the lines of executive arrogance. The statement further quotes him as saying, "This demigod mystique spreads over the entire machinery of the executive arm of government, symbolizing an authoritarian disposition on the governed. It has deformed the orientation of elected and appointed persons who are paid from the taxes of the people to see themselves as oppressors who can do no wrong and must be served rather than serve the people." The governor notes that only God should be recognized as the most excellent and no man can share his qualities. To energy matters now, the Nigeria Liquefied Natural Gas Company, in conjunction with an indigenous partner, Stockgap, has for the first time delivered cooking gas to Port Harcourt from its Bonny Island operational base. Investors in the energy sector and the River State Governor, Nyesom Wike, applaud the achievement, which is expected to lead to a possible reduction in the unit price of cooking gas in the Niger Delta region.
Access to a cleaner, safer and affordable cooking gas comes even much closer to the Niger Delta region, starting from River State. After over 30 years since its incorporation, the NLNG, with its indigenous partner, Stockgap, for first time delivers cooking gas from its operational base in Bonny Island to the Stockgap terminal in Port Harcourt. The governor's arrival kickstarts activities here, For most people who are not involved in the energy industry, the importance of this delivery may be lost on them. But the managing director of the NLNG describes the move as a breakthrough.
Today I stand before you with so much excitement to see our LPG cargo at the stopgap terminal here in Port Harcourt. We believe this brings the clean cooking gas much closer to our households and also makes it more affordable. This for us is a game changer. It is indeed a game changer in the domestic LPG market.
This project has significant employment generation potential for our citizens and the economic development of our home state, River State.
His Excellency,
Governor Nyesom Wike commends the mission. He then makes a pledge.
For what you've done, I will make sure that I will support you to construct this road. So that we won't have the tankers that are coming here falling by the wayside. The road is very bad. And so we're going to support you on that.
Dignitaries to a stopgap terminal.
more than 4 million people die from smoke inhalation using different kinds of fuel. But today, we want to encourage Nigerians, we want to encourage people from the Niger Delta, people from River State, to embrace LPG. LPG is safe, it is cleaner, it is available, and working with Stopgap, we know definitely it is affordable.
In this vessel is the maiden delivery of cooking gas to Port Harcourt from Bonny Island, which is believed will birth other commendable partnership amongst entrepreneurs in the country.
The dust raised over the leadership of minority political parties in the House of Representatives is yet to settle. A member of the House, Ben Ibakpa, citing breach of privilege, is accusing Mr. Kingsley Chinda and some unnamed PDP members of parading themselves as leaders of the PDP caucus. The House also mandated its Committee on Petroleum Resources downstream to investigate alleged unfair practices against the independent petroleum marketers on the sale of premium motor spirit. Our correspondent, Terry Kumi, has the rest of the story.
Those in favor of the motion say aye.
The Deputy Speaker presides over Wednesday's plenary session in the absence of the Speaker, who is out on an official engagement. One of the points of order raised is on the need to ensure the immediate release of Justice Sanwo-Olu, who was abducted in Edo State last week, and increase security around judicial officers.
Urge the Nigerian Police Force and other security agencies to ensure the immediate release of Honorable Justice Sanwo-Olu, JCA, and the apprehension and prosecution of our kidnappers. And two, urge the Nigerian Police Force to increase protection and security around judicial officers and their families across the country. Misleading the general public.
Another seeks the intervention of the House to call to order some members of the People's Democratic Party who claim to be the caucus leaders.
Our integrity as honorable member is being ridiculed by these highly revered and ranking members. Thus, this House must rise up to cure this threat. This violates Section 24 of our Legislative House Powers and Privileges Act, capped of 1 and 2, Laws of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 2004, as well as provisions of the standing orders of this House.
The matter is referred to the Ethics and Privileges Committee. Meanwhile, Mr. Chinda in a statement insists that he is the PDP caucus leader in the House with the authority and consent of the party. He goes further to say that other minority parties are free to have their caucus leadership, and according to him, I don't see how that offends the laws of the House or the Constitution. After the point of order, the lawmakers debate a motion on the need to investigate alleged discriminatory practices of the Petroleum Product Marketing Company Limited and the Petroleum Products Pricing Regulatory Agency against independent petroleum marketers on the sale of premium motor spirit.
Selling the premium motor spirit PMS to major marketer at the rate of 125.65 kobo per liter and selling to the independent marketer at 133.28 per liter.
The House then mandated Committee on Petroleum Downstream to carry out investigation and report back in 4 weeks for further legislative action. Another resolution of the House after debates for and against a motion seeking to put a stop to the post-UTME is to interface with the Joint Admissions and Matriculations Board on how to phase out the process or make it easier for admission seekers. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
French oil giant Total is seeking to sell its 12.5% stake in a major deep-water oil field off the coast of Nigeria. The block, which includes the Bonga field, Nigeria's first deep-water project, which started in 2005 and produced around 225,000 barrels of oil and 150 million standard cubic feet of gas per day at its peak. And that's by reports by Reuters, which says that the investment bank Rothschild is running the sale process for the multinational company. The stake in oil mining lease OML 118, which is located some 120 kilometers off the Niger Delta, is valued at up to $750 million. The sale process is part of Total's plan to sell $5 billion of assets around the world by 2020, as the multinational oil giant prepares to expand its operations in Africa. In the Senate, a bill that proposes up to 14 years jail term for any lecturer who commits sexual offenses in tertiary institutions has passed the second reading. The sponsor of the bill, Senator Ovie Omoagege, in his lead debate, says the best way to deal with sexual harassment in schools is to penalize those who carry out the act. Our correspondent, Linda Akibe, has this report.
Page 312.
It's a bill which has 105 senators, the highest number of lawmakers backing the proposed legislation in recent times. The bill is for an act to prevent and prohibit sexual harassment of students in tertiary educational institutions in the country. Recently, the lid has been blown open on the antics of lecturers who demand sexual gratification from students in exchange for good grades.
Mr. President, sexual harassment in our campuses.
Deputy Senate President Ovie Omoagege reintroduces this bill, which proposes up to 14 years jail term with a minimum of 5 years without an option of fine for any lecturer who commits sexual offences in tertiary institutions.
The strongest and the most effective way to deal with the offence of sexual harassment in our tertiary institutions is to penalize the very impropriety of the act. With or without consent, by making consent immaterial once the act itself is established. In other words, we seek to elevate the offense of sexual harassment in our tertiary educational institutions to statutory rape.
He, however, explains that the bill prescribes expulsion for students who falsely accuse educators of sexual harassment. Some legislators argue that the scope of this bill should be extended.
Mr. President, the law should cover all manner of sexual harassment, whether it is in the tertiary institution or in the private sector or in the mosque or in the church. I think we have to address it holistically because women are suffering so much in the hands of the men.
The legislation must have provision for protection of the victims.
The bill passes the crucial second reading and is sent to the Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters for further legislative work.
Had been sexually abused while
Meanwhile, a federal lawmaker brings before the Senate a problem which he says requires urgent attention from government at all levels. Senator Sanwo-Olu is concerned that there is a prevalence of modern slavery in Nigeria, and media reports of the discovery of illegal rehabilitation centers is a pointer to this worrying trend.
According to the Global Slavery Index 2018, the population of people in slavery in Nigeria is 1,384,000, which is more than the total number of all the other 16 West African countries when added together, which stands at 1,081,000 people.
With the debate done, the Senate, in its prayers, implores agencies, namely the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, NAPTIP, to intensify surveillance and embark on awareness campaigns to curb the prevalence of modern slavery. Linda Akibe, Channels Television News.
In part two, after the break, lawyer to revolution, now protest convener Omoyele Sowore says his client and co-defendant Olawale Bakari have met their bail conditions on charges of treasonable felony. That's in a moment. Stay with us.